warm night in Southern California. We're at the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum where the Rams take the field, set to tee it up with the Chicago Bears on Sunday Night Football.
All right, there we go, guys. Welcome in. We are really getting close to Bears football season. Welcome into Club Dub, presented by SportsMocker.com. Yeah, I love that Sunday Night Football entrance. I might even play it next week before the show. Who knows? No, we are. Man, it's hard to believe. We're almost a week away from Bears Rams, September 12th. As hard as last year was, and it ended on such a sour note, you can't not get excited for football season. The preseason is over. Bears go 2-1. They finish out strong. They get a nice win over the Titans, but none of that matters anymore. We don't give a damn about preseason. None of those scores matter. It's all about looking at players and looking at guys like Dustin Fields and see how they did. We're going to talk about that right now. But guys, what's going on? How have we been? It's been about a week. It's been a week since we talked. So. Did you guys watch the game? And what are our takeaways so far?
I did watch the game. A lot of tape to evaluate with some of the players at the back end of the roster. Obviously, Justin Fields started the first half. Liked a lot of what you saw. Looked calm, poised. Every bit as much during most of the preseason. Exactly what you want to see. Made some big plays and mostly got out of there healthy. So all in all, I'd call it a productive night.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. Justin Fields probably signed off on the preseason in the most tantalizing way possible, and obviously has Bears Twitter ablaze. Travis Gibson was on fire. Pat O'Donnell. I know it's weird saying the punter's name, but he was great all preseason. Several players I thought played really well and made good cases to stay on the roster, and as it turns out with Final Cuts they did. And to your point, Kevin, no one cares about the preseason record. No one cares about preseason anymore. We're past that. It's on to week one. It's on to the Rams, and should be excited. It's a fun time of year.
Yeah. Speaking of punters, this is just a brief off-topic thing. Do you see the Packers cut their punter, J.K. Scott, 5th-round pick a few years ago? Pretty interesting stuff. I did not expect that. I thought he had a pretty good year. I think I said that last week. I thought he had a pretty good. But interesting that you'd waste a 5th-round pick on a punter anyway. But yeah.
Let's be honest, they're not going to be punting much this year.
Yeah, I was going to say I don't think that matters. You can find kickers anywhere, but yeah, no, I'm liking the roster. There's a few positions I really enjoy. The Bears have the oldest roster in the NFL, as their average age is just over 27. I remember reading that earlier this week, and again. That's because there's a lot of guys in expiring contracts. Drew, you alluded to that on Twitter a few weeks ago. So that's not something we're concerned about, but it's something that is obviously there are, our positions of most concern. Obviously, cornerback is number one. I'm very, very concerned about that, but I like where they're at with tight end, wide receiver. It's interesting. It's an interesting group of guys. But before we get into that, we got to talk Ryan Pace. Ryan Pace made his, before the season, his annual season briefing. It was awful. I mean, you don't learn anything from this guy. He says the same thing every time. At least he is at least he's on brand. I mean, this is what he does. He refused to tell us if Tariq Cohen had a second surgery. I mean, what is this guy trying to hide? Seriously. I mean, he thinks that he's keeping the gatekeeper of all these secrets, and it's frustrating to listen to. And I think that there needs to be more transparency, but we've grown accustomed to that not being a thing from this front office. So, do you guys have any takeaways from this? We'll play a couple clips too.
Honestly, you can't be surprised by this. Ryan Pace is doing exactly what the Bears hired him to do, handle the media in this fashion. They like to keep things in-house and that sort of thing, and he does that brilliantly. I mean, he's the king of double talk and all that. He's never going to divulge anything, and he's always calm with the media. He never gets frustrated or anything like that. It's one of the big reasons they like him, because he knows how to handle the media that way. So I'm not the least bit surprised by it. And honestly, I've been living with this for so many years at this point that it just kind of glosses over me.
Yeah, at this point, shame on anyone that actually expects answers in these briefings. It's the MO. Whether you agree with it or not is kind of irrelevant to Ryan Pace. He's going to give his answers. But I will say I caught up on his press conference a little while ago, and he paused quite a few times when asked about Justin Fields, Andy Dalton, and to me, he didn't really seem convinced by how do I justify this to the media in a good way. Clearly, backing up Matt Nagy's plan and the coaching staff's plan, which, a good soldier, collaboration, all that kind of stuff that we joke about.
Yeah, don't use that word in this show.
But, that's he's doing what he's supposed to do, backing up his head coach. But, he didn't seem convinced, and, it's fine. I know everyone's excited to see Justin Fields. And even, look, I said this yesterday on Twitter, Matt Nagy is also salivating at the thought of playing Justin Fields. So, I thought Ryan Pace today, I think he said a lot without really saying a lot by the way he answered that question. So I thought that was interesting. The rest of the stuff, he's not going to comment on medical situations, as he shouldn't. It's really not his place to do that. But in some cases, he just did what he does usually, and that's it. It is what it is.
I mean, it is his job to address if a guy has had surgery, though. I think that's absolutely ridiculous that we didn't hear. Tariq Cohen's obviously on the PUP list, so he's not going to play the first 6 games of this season. Did he have a second surgery? Just answer it, yes or no. Those are things where you can keep things in house. I get that. There's certain things certain conversations that you have with players, contract negotiations. Obviously, that's something all NFL GMs do. They don't really talk about those things, and we get that. That's fine. But if a guy had a second surgery, that's important to know. But anyway, I think as Jason Leisure tweeted out, I think we all have our answer, since he didn't actually answer that. We can kind of infer that maybe it happened. I personally tend to think he did have a second one, but we won't actually know for sure. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. Club Dub, if you're just hopping on right now, I have a fun little competition for everybody. So Ryan Pace in this press conference said excited an unknown amount of times. I want you guys to all guess in the comment section right now, all 40 of you watching. Go ahead, give your best guess for how many times that he said the word excited. If you get it right, we'll have you on our show next week if you want, right before the season starts. You guys can talk with us, and we'll ask you a couple questions and have a good time. Again, we'll be a couple days away from kickoff at that point. So want to have a little fun with the people who have been tuning in. So give us your best guess right now in the comments section. Drew, if you want to look over those and see how many times or see how many responses we get. But yeah, I think this is a little something fun we can do. So I'll let those comments roll in. And then I'm also going to play what Ryan Pace had to say about Tevin Jenkins. He talked a little bit about the injury here, and this is important for the future of this offensive line.
Tevin officially winds up there. There's been a bit of a lack of clarity on exactly when it happened, how it happened, what it happened. What can you shed light on in terms of what his situation is?
Exactly. So when he showed up for training camp, he was started experiencing different symptoms that he never had in college. So we kind of worked through that. We tried to kind of go through all the natural process as we went through that. At the end of the day, it did require a surgery. It was a common surgery. The good thing about it, as soon as we did it, those symptoms went away. So we feel good about it. There's a reason why we waited to put him on IR till today. It gives us the possibility to bring him back at some point this season.
From what you learned and what you've been told, the nature of his injury that required the surgery was different than what he experienced last year?
Yeah, so we knew everything about his back coming out, along with everybody knew. You know, when we were strict with our medical through all that. So it was just the symptoms that he had was totally different than he ever experienced before. So there were new symptoms. We worked through it, and this was the end conclusion. And the good thing is, guys, just because he had back surgery doesn't mean he's not going to have a good NFL career. We're excited about the player, excited about where he's heading. Now we feel like we fixed the problem.
Ryan, even if you don't see that as a pre-existing condition, is it possible that other teams kind of red flagged him as a pre-existing condition? Is that maybe why he dropped from the first round to the second round in the draft?
Yeah, I think, Mark, like we've always been really strict with our medical, probably more strict than ever this past year, especially with COVID and some of the restrictions that we had. So we took a ton of guys off our board for medical and character this past year. So we knew all about it. We were comfortable with it. And again, this is something, the symptoms were way different, and we feel like the issue's fixed. And hopefully it's something he can come back from this year. So we're excited about him going forward, and we feel like the problem's solved.
All right. He feels like the problem is solved. I hope he's right. It's just hard to believe. You know, he has a track record of embellishing a lot of things in press conferences. So it's hard for me to sit back and feel good about that. Tevin Jenkins is going to be a big part of this team moving forward. I think we all know that. Back problems in the NFL are killers. You know, this is concerning on a lot of levels.
Sure are.
You know, it's definitely concerning, you know, anytime anybody has a back injury, regardless of position, but especially bigger guys. So you always have concerns about that. But the good news is he's young, so he still has a chance to recover from this. And also the fact that the Bears carried him over to the main roster before putting him on IR, that tells everybody that they feel there's a genuine chance he can return this year, which is always a good sign that maybe the injury's not as bad as people are making it out. If they had placed him on IR beforehand and made him done for the season, then you know something's seriously wrong. So under the circumstances, yes, it's bad, but it might not be as bad as some people are making it out to be.
And Pace actually outlined that exact methodology in the press conference, saying that we waited a day to put him on IR because we wanted to bring him back. So yeah, I thought he was pretty transparent, saying, look, we expect this problem to be fixed based on this procedure. So I thought that was actually more, we were just joking about transparency. That was pretty transparent in my opinion. But still, you know, hopefully it is fixed. You know, to your point, Kevin, back injuries are tricky, especially for offensive linemen. So hopefully it's the case. But, you know, on the bright side, it looks like the Bears do have a decent insurance policy until then.
Yeah, I kind of, watching the offensive line on Saturday against the Titans, it wasn't great, but it wasn't bad. I think that Jason Peters can only go up from here. You know, his conditioning was a little off, but the dude still moves. And honestly, I forgot how big he is. Holy cow. That dude may be one of the biggest dudes in the history of the league. Oh my God. Yeah. He looked for a 39-year-old, he looked like he can still do the job. He's obviously not going to be, what was he, 9-10-time Pro Bowler in his career? He's not going to be that level, but he's a solid fill-in. I'm glad that he's there, and I'll take him over Charles Leno, Mr. False Start on third down any day of the week. So I think that personally, I like the way they look. Did you guys have any takeaways from the offensive line? I honestly still think they're going to be – the interior looked clearly as their strong suit. But again, it just seemed like the running game struggled again on Saturday, and I don't know if that's play design. These shotgun snap handoffs on third and long, a lot of these things just don't seem to make sense to me. I also don't see a lot of other teams that genuinely run the football better doing this, like the Ravens and things like that. I don't see these plays a lot. So do you think it's more of a play design, or do you think the offensive line still has places to improve?
So part of it is scheme. The Ravens and teams like the 49ers, they're more power, blocking downhill, that kind of thing, whereas the Bears are more of a zone blocking scheme. But that said, I think the Bears, and actually Matt Nagy said this after the game, is that they were none of these play calls were really realistic, especially in the run. I think they were testing to see what the offensive line can do, what can they block, how do they execute, those kinds of things. So, I know there was a lot of concern about that during the game, and luckily that is dispelled. Obviously, we need to see how he calls plays during the regular season. That said, on the offensive line, While I am okay with the interior, certainly, I do have some concerns about Sam Mustipher. We talked a little bit about how he's gained, some weight and muscle in the offseason. Looks like he could be stronger, but I think he did struggle a good bit in the running game a little bit during preseason. And so hopefully that's just, again, part of the test. Maybe they're going to actually run things that he's better at blocking during the regular season. Pass blocking, he seems okay. He seems fine, but as overall, the interior is fine. But I do have a few concerns about Mustipher, more so than I did at the end of last season. And then obviously the tackles are the tackles. Hopefully they're going to be okay.
Yeah, definitely. Mustipher was somebody I pointed out as well. He has a lot to prove this year. People forget he's in a contract season, so he's motivated to play well, and he really has to, because the Bears have a lot of question marks up front. Run blocking was his weakness last year, because the thing about him coming out in 2019 was his lack of strength, and that sort of carried with him even until now. Can he get some push off of these bigger defensive tackles in the NFL? And thus far, he hasn't really been able to do that. So he has a lot to prove this year, and obviously the tackle situation, we don't have a lot of clarity on Jenkins. If Fetty's on a one-year deal, Peters is on a one-year deal. So, I think the guards are probably the strength of this offensive line. Whitehair's really good. Daniels, I think, is only going to get better as he gets more comfortable at right guard. So it's the two end positions and the one in the middle that they really need to find out what they have before going into next offseason.
And I do think that the more and more that I've thought about, aside from the fact that we don't know Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy's contract situations, I do think that part of the reason they're choosing to start Andy Dalton rather, is they do want to figure out what they have in those guys. And I think that that's smart. It's going to be, you get the biggest test of the year in week 1 right up the middle. So with Aaron Donald, for my money, the best player in the NFL. So obviously we'll see. I really hope that the running game shows more improvements. I know the Titans have a very good defense. I know they have a very good team, but it was very disheartening to see the run. We obviously didn't see David Montgomery, but some of the play designs still just reminded me too much of last year, and seems too predictable. And we have a couple comments in there also saying we're always so predictable. And yes, I agree, Coda Bears. It just seems like the running game. It's just preseason though. I'm not getting wrapped up in it. I'm trying not to, at least. Here I am getting wrapped up in it, but I'm trying not to.
Look, if we're saying the same thing after week 1, then yeah. But look, the Bears have tweaked their scheme. The Bears have, again, this is per Matt Nagy's words, they've done a better job of designing some of the scheme around their players. We'll see if that's true. But, I think the main thing they need to be is make sure that they're not indicating what they're going to run based on their personnel, based on their groupings, based on who's on the field, those kinds of things. So as long as they, keep a handle on that, and hopefully guys like Mike Pettin, who have successfully defended Matt Nagy, who's now on the coaching staff, hopefully those other perspectives will give them some, a heads up there.
And keep in mind that this line actually ran block really well last year, especially in the second half. Yeah. And I think this line right now is a better run blocking unit than that one, especially with the addition of Peters. He's not quite the pass protector he was in years past, but he's still big. He's still really powerful. So I think him and Whitehair are going to open up a lot of holes, moving forward, provided, of course, if he stays healthy.
Yeah, I think so too. I'm excited for Jason Peters. He looked a lot better than I thought he would. He just looks like a tree trunk. This dude. If you guys did not catch the game on Saturday, go back and watch the tape of Jason Peters. This guy's one of the biggest dudes I've ever seen in my life. Pace is a broken record. Excited. We got some comments rolling in. If you guys are just tuning in, we're holding a little bit of a fun competition right now. Ryan Pace said the word excited an unknown amount of times in his preseason press conference. Go ahead and drop your predictions in the comment section right now. If you win, you guys will invite you on the show next week, a couple days before kickoff, and you guys can hop on, talk Bears with us. It's always a fun time of year. We'll just have some fun with it and ask you some questions, things like that. So we got about 12 guesses. Probably 10, 12 guesses in the comment section right now. So go ahead and drop your predictions in there if you have not already. Without further ado here, I am going to go ahead and play this video. It's a good one. Let me see if I can find it. I have it right here.
It's more about Andy right now. We're excited about Justin. I'm more excited than anybody. Just because he had back surgery doesn't mean he's not going to have a good NFL career. We're excited about the player, excited about where he's heading. So we're excited about him going forward. And we feel like the problem's solved. Like, we're excited about where he's heading and how he's playing. Excited about Artie Burns, and then obviously Jaylon Johnson. Yeah, it's exciting, Jeff. It is, And I go back to kind of what I'm excited about. It starts with our coaching staff. Really excited about the coaching staff. So I think he's going to have a really big year. We're excited about that. I look at that room, and I'm excited about the room. We're excited about it. We're excited about the versatility in that room. We're really excited about the speed we've added to that room. There's a lot of explosiveness. I know the fans are excited, and we're excited too.
Woo!
Oh man.
Oh God, it's so good. Shout out to Pat Tomasulo of WGN Morning News. He put that one together, and I saw it on Twitter when I was working this morning.
Now let's go back and do Matt Nagy's "Where We're At" and finding the whys.
Oh, that's a great idea. Let's do that. Let's do that next week. I'm totally down for that. All right, looking at some of the guesses: 6J 27, close, 50. CM Daniels 38, Coda Bear real close with 16. We do have a winner though. It is David Walter. I don't know if he watched the video beforehand, but he got it right on the money with 18. David, if you're tuning in, man, go ahead and DM one of us on Twitter, or go ahead and DM Club Dub Podcast, and we will go ahead and drop the link for you next week. If you want to hop on the show, we hope you will. If you're still there, let us know too. Right now, just go ahead and give us a little heads up in the comment. But good stuff in the comments. We got a lot of comments in here. Joel, pretty close.
Nice.
69, yeah. JTB Cubs with 17. Yeah, we're right there. That's pretty close. Good guesses. We know our GM too well. All right, let's talk a little 53-man roster. Breaking news for all of you. I don't know if you guys believe this. Justin Fields is on the roster.
How?
Yeah, good for the Rook. I can't believe it, honestly. Real crazy. Look at it. Let's check out the throw he made, and then I want to hear from your guys' perspective. If in the last 5 to 10 years of Bears football, when the last time you saw a throw this good?
Fields flushed out of the pocket. Throws into the end zone, and it's caught. Horsted on the touchdown for the Bears.
Shout out to Jesper Horsted, by the way. 3 touchdowns. He's got the goofiest name on the team, but shout out. He had an awesome game with 3 tutties, over 100 yards receiving. But yeah, that throw by Fields was unbelievable, man. That was crazy. The skill there was, it's all on display for you what he can do right there. He's dangerous out of the pocket, throws on the run. There's a pinpoint throw right to the sideline. I don't remember a throw that good.
We haven't seen a throw that good since the Cutler era. Cutler had several like that, but in the last 5 years since Trubisky, Matt Barkley, those folks, never seen a throw this good. And this had everything, right? This had immediate, recognition that the pocket's going to collapse, getting outside, keeping eyes downfield, had room to run but didn't run. Perfect throw, back shoulder, only in the spot where Horsted could get it. I know there was talk about maybe Daz Newsome in the back. He would have been out of bounds. So that was only Horsted's ball, just perfect timing. It was awesome.
I think people take for granted how easy guys like him make throws like that look because of how gifted he is. The fact that he was able to do this on the run, let alone from the pocket, tells you how ridiculously talented his arm is, not just his legs. The fact that he was able to see the defensive backs back to him and then put the ball in a place where only Horsted could see it and the defensive back could make no play on it and still keep him in bounds along the sideline. It's just an absolutely insane throw that gets taken for granted because of some of the throws, people see around the NFL from guys like Rodgers, Mahomes, and whatnot. But that's just an insane throw that nobody, aside from a handful of people, can make.
Yep.
Yeah, that was Rodgers-esque. We see Rodgers make dozens of throws like that every year. Some that are caught, some that aren't. But that's exactly who that reminded me of, was just from how many times he's done that to the Bears. Yeah, we're getting some rolling in here for Drew. Yeah, Cuddy in the KC game. I don't remember that game off the top of my head, honestly.
Oh, man. He had a couple in that game.
Yeah. I'd have to go back and look. I do remember this game. Cutler against the Chargers.
Yeah.
I do remember him having a couple really nice dimes.
Remember that one to Jaylon Johnson in the end zone?
What year was that Kansas City game? Why don't I remember that?
It was in 2015.
Yep.
I got to go back and look at that.
Specifically, there were a couple in that game. Obviously, the game winner to Matt Forte, but the best one was his dime over two defenders to Marcus Wilson.
Yeah. That was my favorite.
Yeah, that's
there you
right.
Go. You got it.
I remember that now. Okay, yeah.
Fading away across the field from right hash to beyond the left hash. It's arm talent we've just never seen, and it's ridiculous. But look, glad for Fields. To your point, physical talent. That again, I'm confident in saying we haven't seen a physical talent like Justin Fields in the NFL in a long time. And I truly mean that when you take about his physical attributes, his speed, his arm talent, all that stuff, he's a specimen, and he showed that he absolutely has a physical advantage in this QB battle, so to speak.
Yeah, this dude it's just special. He's special to watch outside the pocket. When he gets outside the pocket, it's going to give defensive coordinators nightmares for the next couple of years, or probably for the next decade. Should he stay in the league and stay healthy. Honestly, that throw was. I know it's preseason, but that was just crazy. The accuracy, everything about it was awesome. Which leads me to believe, and we'll talk about this later on, right before the end of the show. It leads me to believe he's starting earlier rather than later. I think we're all kind of on board with that. Pro Football Focus released some stats from the preseason too. Fields leads rookies 111.6 QBR under pressure. He was pressured on 48.6% of his dropbacks in preseason. 48.6%. Yeah. He didn't play with any of the the top tier linemen.
Rookie QB was blitzed more, by the way, than Justin Fields was.
Well, we talked about that in our chat. I was like, I couldn't believe this guy had no time to throw the ball in the last two games, and he did play with the starting O-line against Tennessee, but before that, he was playing with guys that are off selling car insurance now. So it's just one of those things where he's able to escape the pocket and make things happen. We just haven't seen that before. We had Mitch who could get outside the pocket, but then would run out of bounds and take a sack on third down. He wouldn't get to the line of scrimmage. So Fields knows what he's doing. I just love this stat. Leading all rookie QBs is important, even though they're all in different systems. And Mac Jones wins a starting job this week. Fields hasn't won a starting job, but this still gives us a lot of promise for when he does actually get on the field. A little bit of wide receiver news. Rodney Adams cut but re-signed to the practice squad. I think a lot of fans are upset about that. But you know what? What fan base doesn't get upset at cuts? I saw Browns fans going crazy that they cut a couple of theirs guys who were really good, by the way. The Lions cut Paraman, who is now on the Bears. This happens in every fan base, right?
Anytime you can be upset about wide receiver 6, you have to do it, right? Look, I think but I think the Bears really did get better with the moves that they made, right? They got rid of they got rid of Daz Newsome, they got rid of Rodney Adams, but I think Prashad Paraman's a better fit. Size, speed combination's awesome. Now he doesn't have to be the guy in Chicago either. So if he's your wide receiver 5, that's really good. And Simba Webster is a very good special teams player. He has return ability. I think it's a very good pickup, and he was on San Francisco for a little while and played well. So I think they did get better. And then they were able to keep Daz Newsome on the practice squad, let him develop, and I think he's going to be back sooner than we think. So I think they did get better at wide receiver.
The thing to remember about Prashad Paraman is in his last 16 games the past couple of years, he has over 1,100 yards and 9 touchdowns. So he's not completely inept at being a wide receiver in the NFL. So if you have somebody like that deep on your depth chart, you're probably doing okay. Webster's a really good special teams player. You mentioned the return ability, but he's also good as a gunner on kickoff returns and punt returns. So, he knows how to play, and he gives them something they were really lacking because their special teams was atrocious in preseason. So, getting somebody like that onto the roster was a big benefit. And maybe he can, serve as some gadget type plays that Nagy likes to run like we always see. So he brings a lot of benefits too. So I think they did get better at wide receiver from top to bottom.
I think they did too. Just looking at, obviously, I don't have the numbers. I don't have the 40 times of these guys, but the Bears have to have like at least a top 3 in the category of speed in the NFL in that wide receiver room. I mean, they are one of the fastest rooms in the league. Demir Byrd, Marcus Goodwin, and now Paraman. I mean, those 3 they're burners. Yeah, Darnell Mooney. I saw that video come back onto my Twitter feed this week of that catch he made against Green Bay. Just unbelievable. Burned all the way through Kevin King, I believe, was covering. I can't exactly remember, but the speed on this offense is going to be a lot of fun. I just hope that Andy Dalton can make use of it. I hope that we can really see these guys fly, because it'll make for a lot of fun offense this year. And quite frankly, we haven't had that in a very long time. We haven't had that since, we're getting some comments rolling in here. We haven't had that since, we're talking about we're back on the Jay Cutler era. This is where we are. We're talking about Jay Cutler throws and stuff like that. And this offense, I think, should everything work out the way that it will, it's not going to be as good as that era was with, guys like Greg Olsen and Brandon Marshall and Alshon Jeffrey and Matt Forte. It's not going to be that good, but we could get back to that level, right? I think it's possible. And it's been so long, and I think that's what a lot of people are looking forward to.
And keep in mind, Tariq Cohen still has to return. He can fly too. And look, if Andy Dalton's starting, when Justin Fields plays, I expect defenses to play cover 2 quarters. Just don't let him beat you deep. Keep everything in front of you. And that's where Matt Nagy really needs to design, plays to take advantage of that. Get the ball in space underneath and let his blocking do the rest, let the wide receiver do the rest, which they can. They are playmakers. When Andy Dalton's in the game, I don't know if anyone around the league really respects his deep ball. I think his deep ball is underrated. It's not great, but it's underrated. So if teams are willing to play a little bit more man with, even though these guys have speed, they're like, what's Dalton going to do, throwing the deep ball? If they decide to play a little bit more man, a little bit more cover 1, those kinds of things, then, I think the Bears could surprise. I mean, Dalton, by all accounts, in training camp has been aggressive. He's been throwing downfield. He's been completing balls downfield, been accurate. So that's great. And if that's the case, the Bears could be surprisingly explosive early.
I think another thing that you need to point out here is the benefit of the speed is also going to help others. Allen Robinson, Cole Kmet, David Montgomery out of the backfield. If you can get those guys in space with the way they're able to run after the catch, I think that's going to benefit the Bears in a number of ways as well. I mean, David Montgomery by himself, getting him on the ground is hard enough. If you can get him matched up on linebackers in space, I mean, good luck bringing him down. And, Cole Kmet, he loves to run hard. And, getting those guys more opportunities to catch the football in space has always been a goal for them ever since last year. So now that you have so much speed, the defense is going to have to respect it. And they're going to have to give you a little more space to work with because they don't want to get beat deep. So it's sort of a thing that benefits everybody when you have this much.
No doubt about that. And I think that's a huge point. Getting guys in space and scheming guys open. We haven't seen it yet in the Nagy regime. So hopefully this is the year that we see that, because you're right. I mean, 1 through 5, they're loaded with speed. Skill, I don't know. Like, again, this is all going to – we'll see. But let's take a look at the Bears' newest member of that wide receiver room.
Darnold throwing right, and it is complete. San Fran bring it 4, and Darnold nicely. Flacco, pocket collapsing, hangs in there, and he completes it to Paraman. Instead of going to the RV. Flacco wide open is Paraman, who puts the moves on into Miami territory. 4th and 2, Jets going for it. Flacco to Paraman, he's wide open for a first down.
Interception of the season. Darnold throwing, finds his man across midfield into the 40-yard line.
Flacco puts some air underneath it, got a man, it is caught. Prashad Paraman turned it in motion. Flacco with a nice pocket. Coming across, Paraman. He's all alone out there. Here's the pressure. Flacco feels it, able to complete. Are leaving anybody else out? 2nd and 5. Here's Flacco. All alone is Paraman.
Flacco. Gonna go deep. Inside the 10-yard line, and the catch is made by Prashad Paraman.
3rd down and 9. Darnold looking deep for Paraman. He's got separation and the catch. From the 24-yard line, Darnold quick pass caught by Paraman. Paraman gets away from Howard, and Paraman with some room to run.
Shotgun on 3rd and 8. Collapses over the middle. It's caught.
Tricks. The fake to Johnson. Darnold throwing, and it is caught at about the 30-yard line.
Play fake. Darnold sets, open, and caught at the 31-yard line.
And an end around, and this time it comes to Paraman, who breaks a tackle.
Pre-snap where to go with the ball. On 1st down, off the play fake. He zips it to the middle of the field. Pass is caught by Paraman, who's running into the open field. On the far side, blazing inside the 15.
And that play there at the end is awesome. You think Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace watched that play, the end around, and they're like, oh, man, I can't wait to run that for -5 yards this year. The Bears can't run that play.
Imagine how quickly he can get out of his break on a curl route. All curls, man.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, watching that video, I feel bad for Sam Darnold. Darnold looked pretty good in those. Like, a lot of those throws he made looked really solid, and he had a horrible offense to work with last year. So, maybe he'll be better in Carolina. Maybe they were sleeping on him. But you hear what Tony Romo said about Zach Wilson today? He said that Zach Wilson in the next 3 seasons, 2 to 3 seasons, he will be a top 3 quarterback in the NFL. You are out of your mind, Tony. I love your analysis, but you are out of your mind.
I don't know about top 3, but me personally, I was a big fan of Zach Wilson coming out of BYU. I wanted the Bears to get him real bad. So when he went number 2, I was like, man, I'm so depressed. And then we got Fields, and I obviously forgot about it. But the bottom line is he's a talented young man. He can really throw that football. If they can get an offensive mind in front of him and give him some targets, I absolutely think he can be productive in the NFL.
Certainly, yeah. I think his arm talent is interesting. It's not quite a howitzer type of arm strength that Mahomes, Stafford, those kind of guys have. But he's got decent arm talent, and I think he'll take a little bit of time, I think, to adjust to the speed of the NFL. But I think he'll be a good quarterback for a while.
He had a great preseason, and I think you got to start looking at. I think you have to start looking at some of his wide receivers as fantasy threats this year too. I know you guys don't play fantasy, but I'm definitely looking at a couple of those guys for my team in late round picks because people are like, "Oh, the Jets." Yeah, I'm a little upset that you guys don't play. I'm throwing a little shade because it'd be fun. It'd be fun. Hey, guys, in the comment section, berate Eric and Drew for not wanting to play fantasy football.
I haven't played fantasy football.
I am impervious.
It's been 10 years, and I've never been happier.
That's fine. To each their own. Another thing about this, what were you going to say?
I was going to have maybe 12 years. I can't remember.
That's fair. I mean, you're missing out. But if you are happy, Drew, if you're happy, I'm happy. Okay?
My man.
We've been doing this show for maybe 2 months now. And for guys watching, we've
Damn, John.
Is he talking to you? Damn.
Yes. I guess he is. Oh, yeah.
Eric,
this is the first comment. How could you not play fantasy football?
Yeah, right, John. I get you. I love fantasy football. But, again, to each their own. Have you ever, this is the biggest position of need right now. I have never, ever felt worse in my life about a Bears cornerback position right now. Their depth chart, their depth there is so horrible. Artie Burns is your third option right now. Duke Shelley is playing nickel corner. Oh, my God. Put a bullet in my head.
The funny thing is, I think Artie Burns is actually an underrated. In fact, I'd rather have him start at cornerback too. I think he has pretty decent tools, and I think he's just injuries have ruined his career. But that being said, first of all, the Bears have 5 cornerbacks right now on the roster. Not enough, in my opinion. And look, Kindle Vildor struggled in preseason, but Ryan Pace talked about how excited he is about Vildor, and the coaching staff is about Vildor yesterday. So that's one data point, I guess. And then you have Duke Shelley, who got picked on So, it's not good. Marquis Christian is back, which, he's fine. He played well. But, yeah, exactly. But that's my point. It's
Marquis
not
Christian, we're going to the Super Bowl. Anyway.
There's your potential nickel, maybe safety at times, Swiss Army defensive back who, was cut before final cuts and then brought back. That's the guy, the Bears have on their roster right now. It's not good. It's not looking good. Jaylon Johnson is obviously the most talented of this group, but we don't know if he can stay healthy for a full season and how he'll do against number one receivers. So
he also might have the easiest year on this team. I don't think he's going to get thrown at. Why? I don't know. I could. This is a long shot, but I honestly don't see him getting thrown at a whole lot. Why would you? With the way this defense stacks up right now, we saw quarterbacks just absolutely torture Kindle Vildor in the preseason. We saw Mitch Trubisky torture him in the preseason. With the quarterbacks this team has to play in the first 5-6 weeks of the year, they really need. There's rumors about Bryce Callahan returning from Denver. Denver's got the upper hand. Vic Fangio knows that.
Yeah.
They're gonna get a lot for it, and it's just like, are we really getting to the point where we're gonna have to overpay for a cornerback because we've decided to pay Robert Quinn instead of keeping Kyle Fuller on this roster? It just sucks, man. We've been blessed with great corners for so long, and Kyle Fuller obviously being one of the best. It really sucks not to have him, and we're seeing the impacts of that now, and I'm deeply, deeply concerned. This defense prides itself on not giving up big plays. They're going to give up some big plays this year.
The bottom line is the Bears were always going to have to bite the bullet somewhere on this team because of the salary cap fallout from COVID-19, and unfortunately it ended up being cornerback. If you look at their roster right now, there's nobody older than 26 at cornerback. It's a very, very young group. It's also a talented one. Artie Burns struggled in Pittsburgh. There's no question about that. He has a lot of question marks, but he's never not been talented. So maybe a fresh start, getting an opportunity in Chicago can help. Shelley, he struggled ever since last year when he started filling in for Buster Screen, so he's a definite question mark. And Vildor didn't play a lot, and he still seems to be adjusting to the type of coverages that the Bears play. They're more of a zone-type defense, and he liked to play a lot of man when he was in college. So that, adjusting to zone's not as easy as it sounds. So that might be something he's adjusting to. The bottom line is the Bears are giving these guys a chance, an opportunity to get on the field, get some experience, and maybe they'll grow. They've never not had talent, so maybe giving them that opportunity, they'll struggle early, but maybe come into their own along the way. And if not, the Bears will have some good tape to work with and say, okay, we definitely need to upgrade the cornerback position going into next year.
The one more thing is, look, in the preseason, the Bears allowed their corners to play a lot more man, right? I mean, they talked about one-on-one. How do they do? Sean Desai's not going to run a lot of, man coverage, just leave him on islands, right? And he's going to scheme. They're finally going to game plan and scheme for teams like LA and really throughout the season. And, if he's classic Fangio, he's going to have two high safeties. They're going to play more of a zone and, rely on other players to help, with that coverage. So, these players do not have to be one-on-one stars, but they do need to be better than what they showed at times, especially with their tackling, because in the zone coverage, obviously tackling is important. So that being said, if they improve their tackling, I think they'll be better. I'm excited to see what Sean Desai comes up with as far as game planning, scheming. If he is like classic Fangio, then that's awesome. I am interested to see how the pass rush performs without blitzing. Hopefully they're not blitzing too much, and the pass rush is looking good the way it did in preseason. That would be helpful. So, again, a lot of questions I know that, we have as media fans, whatever, about the defense. But, if those are answered, this defense is still going to be really good.
Agreed. I love the comment, the God Young. Joe Hayden would be awesome. I think he's just too expensive for this team. But, man, you're talking about a premier level corner there. I'm loving the comments rolling. We're getting a lot of comments out there. Shy Bulls has been watching. Go Bears blog. John Argo, 68J. You guys have been awesome tonight. So thanks for leaving all these comments. You're right here. John, perfect comment. Good pass rush helps with the question. But, yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's and you're right. The one thing that we noted in our last show was the Bears have depth for days on that defensive line. They have a lot, an outside linebacker too. They have a lot of depth on, or inside linebacker rather, not outside. But they have a lot of guys that are, if you want to blitz Ogletree, it seems like, why not? He's got the speed. And I just want to point out one thing. We were really on top of a couple things a couple weeks ago when we were talking about this. Alec Ogletree won that job. Trevathan is hurt, but Ogletree is a better football player right now. And we talked about that. We alluded to it. I didn't hear many people talking about that on podcasts, so I'm proud of us for that. And also, we've been on top of a lot of things on this defense. You guys have been on top of nickel corners and who's winning these positions left and right. So we've done a really nice job of predicting that. All right, enough clapping us on the back here, patting us on the back. But I just wanted to say I've gone back and watched some of our shows, and we've been on top of that. Yeah, I agree here, Shy Bulls. For the love of God, don't let Pace trade any more draft capital. Yeah, but I don't know. It depends on where you think this defense is. If this offense really lives up to what Matt Nagy is saying it's going to take 3-4 years to, make this click, and we're going to have bigger plays this year. The quarterback was clearly our issue last year. If all of that, if this offense is top half of the league, they find themselves in a position to get into a wild card game because, again, they're not winning this division. So if they find themselves in a wild card position, then if they think they're at that level the first couple weeks of the season, I say go for it. Go trade yourself for a solid cornerback. I'm okay with giving up some draft capital for it. But if you don't think that you're there this year, wait until next year. This year, this isn't Justin Fields' starting season. He will start in week 1 next year. There's going to be a lot of cap coming off the books next year. Hopefully Robert Quinn, if he has another bad year, you get rid of him. You save a lot of money in a lot of different areas. Akeem Hicks, we don't know if he's coming back. There could be a lot more money and a lot of maybe potential trades too that we could see down the line. You see any of these guys getting moved maybe? Do they trade any of them for corner talent?
Not this year.
Not unless somebody comes out in the first half and just absolutely explodes and the Bears decide, but the Bears are still losing, that sort of situation. And it's like, okay, maybe we can unload this guy while he's hot and maybe get something for him. So something like that. But otherwise, I don't think they have anybody who's really tradable right now.
I would agree. Yeah. And quite frankly, it's too late too. I mean, you trade someone, yeah, you're going to acquire draft picks maybe, but if you're trying to trade for a corner, they have a lot of studying to do, getting back into, right, Bears scheme shape, right? So it's going to be a challenge. And again, to your point, the Bears are in a spot where they feel like they can win games with Andy Dalton, allow for Fields to take that time and get to that point where they're absolutely comfortable with him playing. And then seeing if Fields is the guy. That's what this year is ultimately about. I don't think they're really going to start competing until next year. Realistically, the year after. That's when they're going to make their major push.
Have you guys ever felt worse about the corner position? Love to see the comments keep rolling in from our guys listening. Truth be told, I have never felt worse about a Bears cornerback position. I'm not confident in that group. I really think it's going to struggle this year, and I think it does. I know that you guys are saying maybe not trades right now, but I think a guy like Bryce Callahan, who's played in this system, he's not going to light the world on fire, but man, I'll take Bryce Callahan in that nickel corner position 10 times out of 10 before I'm starting Duke Shelley there. He's familiar with how the Bears play. He's obviously been a member of the team, years ago. So I think if an opportunity like that presents itself, and Denver has said they received dozens of calls or something like that from teams around the league. Yeah, so they say. So they say. I think that's a very viable option, and I would love to see the Bears end up with a corner before week 1. I don't know if it's likely, but I'm keeping my eyes on it. I hope it happens. I really do.
Agreed.
I mean, obviously Callahan would be a fantastic get, but I think there's a couple of guys out there now who might actually be worthwhile in getting. Another one who I was surprised wasn't claimed on waivers was Jimmy Moreland from Washington. He's been good the past couple of years as a nickel corner for them. And I was surprised they cut him. I mean, I heard he had a bit of a knee strain, but he should be ready for week 1, according to what the reports say. So I'm surprised nobody's picked him up yet. Maybe they're just waiting on the medical information, but, I guess we'll find out, soon enough. But he's absolutely somebody they should be interested in if he's still available.
I don't know anything about him, but I trust your judgment on that. I just think at this point they got to go out and get some guys. Do you see any moves being made before week 1? Do you think they'll go out and pursue anybody at this point? I know their roster's full, but do you think that there's a chance that, you go get one of these guys?
Maybe, but it won't be via trade. It would be, a signing.
Yeah, any move counts.
Potentially. Potentially. I mean, keep in mind, it maybe not just before week 1, but you have, Danny Trevathan eligible to come back after week 3. Same with Tevin Jenkins. We don't know how long he'll be out. Tariq Cohen after week 6. So the Bears will be making some roster moves here and there. I don't know if they have anyone on their practice squad that's a defensive back at the moment. But that being said, someone like Jimmy Moreland, as Eric mentioned, who has proven to be a good cornerback. Nickel Roby-Coleman, I don't believe he's signed yet either. So, look, I mean, if the Bears feel that they go into week 1, they get terrorized by Matthew Stafford and that, wide receiver group and Sean McVay and national television, and they're like, oh, yeah, we need to make a move here, then they probably will.
That's going to happen, too.
Yeah, for sure.
That's going to happen. Matt Stafford's been licking his chops for this game. He knows this team. He knows that he finally has a team around him and can maybe get some revenge on the Bears, who had his number for, 12 seasons. So,
if I recall, Matthew Stafford has a winning record against the Bears. I think,
really,
if I recall correctly, at least in the middle seasons, Pressman tenure, Fox tenure, he won more than he lost for sure. I need to look that up, but I think he's like 12-11 or something like that. Something surprising that I think Bears fans would be surprised about. I need to verify that.
So just from a quick Google search, I don't know if this is true or not.
11-9 against the Bears.
Wow, that's crazy. I didn't know that. 32 touchdowns, over 5,000 yards in 20 games with an 86.3 passer rating.
My man Stafford.
Wow, I didn't.
Good player, man.
Good, good call, Drew. I did not know that. I figured the Bears had his number for a while. I mean, we had some really, really lean years in there after the transition from Cutler to Trubisky, so that kind of makes sense. But the last few years, I'm having short-term memory because I block out the pain that the Bears have caused me. Don't
forget, he single-handedly won that game at Soldier Field last year.
Yeah, he did.
Just ridiculous. But look, the guy is amazing, and I'm first of all, as a fan of his, I'm looking forward to him getting actual, credit and due this year because I'm sure the Rams are going to be good. But look, the Bears are in trouble if they can't tackle. Right, the pass rush may be good, but if they can't tackle, because look, you can scheme around a good pass rush, and if you can't tackle as a defense, they're in trouble.
I'm trying to find before we get to the Andy Dalton thing that I have pulled up here. I saw a list on Twitter when they released the NFL Top 100 list. I saw that Matthew Stafford was ranked as the, I want to say, 13th best quarterback in the league. What are we watching, man? He's top 10 for sure.
7.
Lions syndrome, man.
Yeah. I know.
Naturally.
But like some of these guys that they had Kyler Murray before him. They had, Ryan Tannehill before him. Come on, get with it, guys. Like Matthew Stafford is no joke. This guy's great. He's easily top 10. I embellished it. I was talking with one of my friends. I said he's top 5. He's not top 5, but he is top 10. He is closer to that top 5 than he is to the bottom 10. I mean, he's going to have a field day on Sunday. I'm worried about it, but.
Put it this way, if he were playing for Dallas, they'd be talking about him as a possible Hall of Famer, okay? So people need to keep the perspective about where he came from. Detroit's, the dead zone. That's where quarterbacks go to die, basically, all because of the Bobby Lane curse, apparently.
God, imagine playing in Detroit.
Sorry to the listeners to make this a Stafford podcast, but,
I mean, we love football, so it's it's going to be more than the Bears podcast. We're gonna give you all angles of it. To be honest, I'm worried about week 1. I think he's got a chip on his shoulder. He's ready for this one, so
he's excited.
We'll see. But Dalton's tenure is QB1. It's going to be Dalton versus Stafford, week 1, September 12th, coming up. Again, I'm getting so excited. We're just over a week away, so. Dalton's tenure, go. I want to hear how many starts he gets in a Bears uniform this season.
to me, it's going to come down to that first 3 games because that's a pretty nasty stretch to start out with. You've got the Rams first with Aaron Donald and that good defense. I mean, they're perfectly equipped to take on a team like the Bears because you got Ramsey who can take care of Allen Robinson and at least limited him. And then you've got Donald coming up the middle against a quarterback like Dalton, who's not the most athletic in the world. So it's a bad matchup on paper. Can they win? Sure. Anybody can beat anybody on any given Sunday. We always know that. And then 2 weeks later, you've got another really good team in the Browns that you're going to have to go on the road and face Myles Garrett, Jadeveon Clowney, that really good defense, and another team that's capable of scoring with Baker Mayfield and all of them. So that's a tough stretch. And if Dalton really struggles across that stretch and they're like 1-2 or even 0-3, I think that's when Nagy's going to start to think, okay, I'm losing, control of this thing, so I might have to go to Justin when we face Detroit. So that's the one a lot of people seem to have their eyes on. If Dalton can survive that, I think he can probably get towards the end of the first half going into the bye week. And then maybe you think about Baltimore after the bye, which is one I've always pinpointed. But it's just a question of, can he play well even if they, struggle and lose the first few games? As long as he's playing well, I think Nagy's going to stick with him. But if he's playing well, not playing well, and they're losing, he's not going to hold on to that job long.
So you say 4 weeks?
I would put it at that as if he can get past week 3 without completely blowing it, he should be fine. But if not, you're going to see Justin probably against Detroit.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's week 5, right?
4.
That is week 4. Okay. Okay. So you're saying he gets guaranteed 3 starts.
I think so.
Okay.
I think that's about fair.
Eric said 3. Drew, what do you got?
Yeah, I'm going to preface mine a little bit. So, before the season, I talked, look, sit Fields as long as he needs. Dalton is a capable person to hold the tide. Now, look, I've never thought it's about, I know Ryan Pace made it sound like it's about Andy Dalton. It's not about Andy Dalton. It's never been about Andy Dalton. It's always been about Justin Fields. I think, based on what I've seen from preseason and everything that I've seen in, practice reports, etc., Justin Fields is certainly ahead of what they expected, what I expected him to be at this point. And that's, based on what I'm seeing on tape with him keeping his eyes downfield when under pressure. I mean, those are things that you can easily be sucked into bad habits. Long story short, I think he is certainly more ready than I expected. I had originally also targeted that Baltimore game like Eric, and I thought that would have been a good spot. I feel like Fields could be ready before that. And so if that's the case and the Bears feel that he's come along well and is learning from whatever Dalton's putting out there during weeks 1, 2, 3, I don't see why not that he wouldn't start week 4 because circumstances are great. You're at home, you're against the Lions, etc. Even if Dalton's playing well, if the offense is looking good, and the Bears are 1-2 but have looked promising, they competed with the Rams, they beat the Bengals, they competed with the Browns, great. But at the end of the day, when Fields is ready and they actually feel he's ready, I think he'll play. I think that could be week 4, as early as week 4. But that said, if he's not playing well and Dalton's continuing to, or he's not looking ready and Dalton's continuing to play well, then they're gonna sit Fields as long as they have to. They have no rush. So
right,
long answer. But if Fields,
Jesus, wrap it up, man. Come on, holy.
Sorry, everybody. A long answer, but look, if Fields is coming along the way he seems to have been coming along so far, I think week 4 is when he would start. So 3 starts for Dalton.
Okay, so you have 3 you guys both have guaranteed 3 starts for Andy Dalton.
Yes.
Okay. I think Fields is going to start week 2.
You won't even give Dalton the revenge game?
I just wanted to see your reaction. I'm giving Dalton 2 starts. I do think that he'll have a chance to start against the Browns. I think Fields will have a chance to play against that team because I truth be told, the Browns are a Super Bowl contender. The Rams are a Super Bowl contender. The Bengals are not. I think Andy plays good against the Bengals. I think he'll get most of that game. The Rams, this is one of those games that could go either way. I think the Browns are going to blow the Bears out of the water. I think the Rams will beat the Bears too, but I think the Bears have a better shot at beating the Rams than they do the Browns. The Browns are, man, they're good. They're a machine. They got a top 5 offensive line, a top 5 or 6 defense, a great wide receiving core, a quarterback who's really come into his own as a leader and a great thrower. and Baker, a great running back room. I mean, they are loaded. They're a very talented football team. They're going to beat the Bears pretty handedly. So that being said, why not give Justin one of the hardest things of the year, the hardest assignments of the year? Why not put him in? Why not throw him in? See what he can do. Because I think regardless you're losing that game. I think Andy for sure gets 2 starts. I think that there's a shot that he plays week 2. I think there's a shot Justin will play week 3. We'll see. Everyone seems to be saying week 4 like you guys, so I wanted to be different. I wanted to stand out.
Bears Twitter is all about, protecting Fields from, Aaron Donald, Myles Garrett, Jadeveon Clowney. So you're going to make some enemies with that take, even though,
he's got to play. He's got to play sometime. I saw Olin Kreutz, and I've seen like Matt Forte and a lot of these older Bears guys who are, obviously know the game way better than we do, saying he's got to get in there at some point. It's the nature of the league. He's got to play at some point. Why not play him in there?
People forget that the Bears threw Mitch out against the number 1 defense in 2017. So, it's not like they're afraid to do stuff like that in the past.
Mm-hmm.
It's true.
Before we wrap up, I do want to go over one thing that we missed. I wanted to see. This is a guy who's looking for a contract extension, and it's going to be interesting to see if he gets it. He's been one of my favorite Bears for the last couple of years. Let's hear what the head coach had to say about Akeem Hicks before we wrap up here on Club Dub.
Where do you see Akeem Hicks' mindset? What are you picking up from him?
It's funny you asked that. I grabbed them the other day, and I just brought him over, and I said, how appreciative I am of the way he's handled this training camp. I mean, he is practicing hard. He's being a great leader in the meetings. He's really been awesome. And for that, I told him, I said, sometimes we as coaches can always talk about the bad, whether it's what you did wrong in a play, right, or what you need to do here or there across the board. And a lot of times we don't sometimes give enough praise when you just take it for granted. And I told him, I said, listen, man, I love your leadership. I love the way you're handling this summer and where you're at. And it's really neat to see right now where he's at.
He's refused to talk to us for 8 months. What's your take on that?
Again, it's everybody is a little bit different. I mean, you guys see how I am. You see how you're talking about how he is, and I don't want to get into anybody's individual decisions other than I just think that for me, I deal with the media and with doing interviews and talking, and everybody's a little bit different. So I understand from both sides, but I think there's that's a hard answer for me to give. I know what you guys are feeling. You want to be able to talk to him more.
But it kind of puts you on the spot, doesn't it? Because it is a professional responsibility that he's not upholding.
Yeah, again, it's I understand it, and I'm not going to get into a back and forth match with him.
Probably a good call. Matt Nagy versus Akeem Hicks in a fight. Who wins? I'm gonna go with big bad Akeem Hicks. It is interesting though. I didn't even think about that. How I think the last interview we got with him was with Lauren Screeden, who's the Bears' wonderful sideline reporter for the team. It was on a Sunday night game or a Monday night game where I think the Bears were headed close to the postseason. And I just remember him saying, we want more, and then he growled into the mic like a bear and ran into the tunnel after they won. And I think, honestly, that's the last time I remember hearing from him in a media/public setting. So I think a lot of that had to come down to, if you guys remember, the interview he had with ESPN 1000 on Waddle and Sylvie, when they jokingly made fun of his elbow injury, and he got really pissed.
Yeah.
Which, clearly, Tom Waddle is a Bears legend. Clearly they were joking, but come on. I mean, that was, maybe not the greatest decision when it was still fresh. Akeem loves playing football. He's clearly beloved by his teammates. That was clearly a sore topic for him. And I think since that moment, he vowed never to talk on that show again. He hasn't since, and we really haven't heard from him since. But either way, you know what? If he doesn't want to talk to the media, fine. It's one guy. I hope he sticks around. I love watching him play football, and he seems to be very good for this locker room. So,
the thing to remember about Akeem is he's one of those players that feeds on emotion. The more he feels it during a game, the better he plays, and that's always the way he's been, and it's what's made him great. But the problem is that emotion can go both ways, and if he loses control of it, he can end up saying something that he'll end up regretting, which is probably why he's trying to avoid these media sessions, because he fears he might say something he'll regret. And I respect him for that. Better not to say anything at all than say something you're going to regret. So, I love how the media sounds so indignant about the fact that he's not talking to them, but I could honestly care less as long as he plays well on Sundays. So it would be great to hear from him, but I totally respect his decision not to talk to the media.
Certainly, engaging personality, one of the best acquisitions in Bears history, life and soul of this team, heart and soul of this team. So, it'd be great to hear from him. He's always an engaging personality, but at the same time, look, he's got his own things going on. He wants a contract extension, and he doesn't feel like representing the Bears in a more, media friendly aspect until he gets that. And it's fine. Look, as long as he comes out and performs and plays well, doesn't, quit on his teammates and coaches, that's all you can really ask for. I understand media is a professional responsibility as an NFL player, and great, but look, I think he's made enough money. He can pay those fines. This is something he's not comfortable with. He doesn't want to do the whole Marshawn Lynch shtick of I'm only here so I won't get fined. That's not his style. So I respect it. Just play well, right? And that's all. I'm sure that's all the Bears and their coaches talk about, and that's really what Matt Nagy was referencing too.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I like to hold all players and coaches to the same standard. I do think he should talk to the media this year. I respect him for not wanting to, but at some point he should talk. That is part of his job. It's in his contract. It's in all NFL players' contracts. But you're right. To each their own. Khalil Mack has a deal where he talks after games, and I think like in the off season, it's once a week, or he talks to the media once a week during the season, and once every couple weeks in the off season. So that's their style. But anyway, we answer your questions right now. I got a lot rolling in right now, which is great. This has been an awesome group listening in. You guys have been really in tune. A lot of great questions rolling in. Let's start right here. John Lott, how many carries split with running backs? This is interesting. I think Khalil Herbert has definitely earned some snaps. He played very well in the preseason with Tariq Cohen out and Damian Williams in at RB2. I think we all know David Montgomery's getting 80% of the carries on this team. He's deserved that. He was a 1,000-yard rusher last year. I think I'm going to go like maybe 80-15-5.
It's probably reasonable. And look, I don't expect the Bears to necessarily care about getting Damian Williams and Khalil Herbert a lot of carries. I mean, it could be as much as 90 to 95% for David Montgomery. I think the Bears could utilize two-back sets a good bit this year when they have a pass-catching threat like Williams, and obviously Herbert showed that he could do it a little bit, and then obviously Cohen when he comes back. So I think personnel and formation-wise, I think the Bears could be more interesting that way. But from a carry standpoint specifically, I think the Bears are comfortable giving Montgomery the lion's share, 90-95% of those carries.
I agree with that, but you always have to remember with Matt Nagy, he's very, I'm trying to find the right word for this, but he's very expressive with his personnel. He likes to use guys that you normally wouldn't consider deserving of snaps on offense. Ryan Nall got in there. Taquan Mizell, if you remember him. I always remember him getting in on games, and it's like, why are you giving the ball to these guys who haven't really earned it? So, you always have to factor that in with Nagy because that's just the way he operates. So, but I do think the primary guy is going to be Montgomery, with Williams probably getting a series or two each week, depending on how, the flow of the offense goes. And Herbert, I think, is going to be the primary competitor on kick returns with Webster, depending on who wins that out. So they're all going to be involved, but Montgomery is going to be the main guy because he's earned it and he's really that good. So
he's really good.
That's sort of what you have to factor into everything moving forward.
Real quick aside to Eric's comment about using people where they shouldn't be. Shout out to Matt Nagy being so crazy to use Chris Lacey on a trap block on a defensive tackle over 120 pounds heavier than he was.
Oh my God,
you
man!
Never guess what happened with that carry. It didn't go anywhere, but I digress.
Oh, I mean, I could have guessed that. You give me multiple choice, and I'll still get it right. Yeah, you guys remember Dropmetrius Harris, don't you? Oh God.
Of course. How can you not?
I got more snaps last year than he played in the freaking playoffs. Like, all right, don't even get me started. All right, next question. What are the odds Nagy uses the run and sticks with it all year? Nagy's a pass-first guy. We know that he wants to pass the football, but I think I say this with a lot of trepidation. I don't know if he's learned from his mistakes from last year yet. Abandoning the run does not win you football games. This is a great question because I really don't know how he's going to handle it this year. He said earlier, a couple weeks ago, he wants to run Montgomery 20 times a game. I don't think that happens. Truth be told, because I don't think the Bears' offense is going to stay on the field enough for that to happen. That's just how I feel about it right now. My feelings could change based on week one, but I have concerns about this.
And look, the reality is a large portion of those extra carries that get you past the 20-25 threshold come when you have a lead and you're salting the game away in that 4-minute offense. And the Bears haven't had leads. I mean, you look at a lot of those wins that they had last year, the Falcons, the Lions. I mean, those were come from behind victories where they were behind big. So he even said that on the Under Center podcast. He said that in press conferences. Like, look, this is a league where you usually throw to take the lead and you run to salt the game away. That's usually what you do. I think the Bears schematically are probably going more towards a play action type of offense, which relies on establishing the run, outside zone, those kinds of things. And so they're going to need to rely on the run a little bit to set up some other things they want to do on offense. So that means you'll see Montgomery and maybe Williams, maybe Herbert getting 7, 8, 9, 11 carries in the first half, third quarter, and then you see more of those 5, 6, 7 carries to finish out the game happening in the fourth quarter, which, a lot of teams use that formula, and I think that's where he wants to get to. And if the Bears aren't keeping up and are not staying on the field and scoring points and taking leads this season, he's not going to be able to, get there, and no one's going to be able to blame him.
Why do I always feel like Ogletree is going to test positive for something? Man, that's on fire. I'm gonna be honest. I read that question all wrong. I was scrolling through the comments really quickly, and I thought it was an Ogletree question. But anyway, we're gonna skip that one. But I am happy that Ogletree is starting, John. I think he's earned that spot. I think he was a hell of a pickup for this team. He's quick. He's got the speed that the Bears really missed last year. I think him and Roquan up the middle is gonna be special this year. Those two are gonna be a lot of fun. I like this one. Go Bears blog. What is your over under for Bears running attempts in week 1 against the Rams? I don't know. Let me check what the line is at because I don't know. I'll let you guys go while I look.
In terms of how Nagy seems to approach things, what happened the past couple of times with the Rams is they got away from the run real quick and they were allowed to unleash Aaron Donald. I really think the Bears are going to try to establish the run and sort of try and keep Aaron Donald in check as much as possible. It's not going to be easy because the Rams know this. That's why they always try to stop the run first, because then they know they can unleash Aaron Donald and, put Jalen Ramsey on the best receiver and, the rest is history. So I do think the Bears are going to try to run. The problem with Nagy, that's always been his thing, is if it doesn't work early, he rarely ever goes back to it later. And that's been his problem. It's sticking with it. And I think that he probably really hasn't changed in that regard. He always has his philosophies. And if he feels something isn't working, he's probably not going to stick with it and he's going to try something else. So I think they're going to try and run early. And if it's successful, absolutely he'll stick with it. They'll keep feeding Montgomery and try and really grind down the Rams defense. If it doesn't work, you're going to see Andy Dalton throwing a lot.
Yeah, I'm with you.
So I can't find the line on rushing attempts, but I will pull up here the lines on PointsBet for the game. The Bears are 7.5-point dogs to the Rams right there. The over-under set at 44.5 points. And then kind of looking at some of the lines here, some of the things I like. Rams win by 3.5 plus. I like that. And then obviously, if we're just looking at some of these here, obviously, if you are betting this game, you're gonna wanna go. The safest bet, obviously, is the Rams money line. Tells you if they win or not. I like the under in this game. I think both defenses are pretty stout, and I would go with the Rams to cover. I think they'll win by more than a touchdown. But good question. We'll have to have Matt back on to talk some more sports betting next week before the game. Go give Matt a follow. He's one of our gambling guys on Sports Mockery. Does a really nice job. But over under for Bears running attempts, to answer your question, go Bears blog. I think it'll be under 25 total attempts. It'll be right around that 20 mark, I believe. Does Nagy's history as a QB influence his abandonment or for the run? I think absolutely it does. Yeah, I do. So just quick answer on that. You guys agree? I think so.
Oh, yeah.
Probably a little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
As a former quarterback, you always like to be able to throw the football. It's in his blood. It has been for years, and he came from the Reed system. It's a quarterback first, pass first system. So he's been grown into what he's become in terms of being a pass first guy. So none of this should be a huge surprise.
Do you think he puts Fields in for a few plays here and there, or just sits his best player for whole games? This is not we haven't Nagy's never been in this situation before with a guy of this magnitude, this stature, with Fields coming in as a rookie. So I think he'll sit him. But then again, it would be really, really awesome to have a Fields package kind of thrown in there, spice it up. He loves to get cute on offense. I'm not going to rule that out. We just talked about it with the types of players and the types of packages he likes to run with certain guys where you're like, who the heck is that and why is he out there right now? Maybe we're saying that about Justin Fields in the first half of this game. Who knows? Maybe he's out there for a series or a play and it works. I'm not going to rule it out.
Don't forget that they actually tried to do that against New Orleans with Trubisky last year. The first
You're right.
game against New Orleans, and then, of course, Trubisky got hurt on the play. So, he had the idea in mind. It just didn't, work out because Mitch got hurt. But when you see something like that, you absolutely believe that he's got something cooked up for Justin to get in there, get some snaps, use that athleticism. So, absolutely, I think he's got something, in mind for that, depending on the situations.
Poor Mitch, man. That shoulder. I remember him diving and just...
Yeah.
He didn't even hit the ground that hard, but sometimes it's not how hard you hit it.
Yeah, exactly.
Drew, what do you think? You think he'll do it? You think he'll have a couple in there?
Yeah, I think Matt Nagy's been a little bit coy. He was asked that, and he was a little bit coy about that. His response was, we'll evaluate. We're still deciding what we're going to do, that kind of stuff. And I wouldn't be surprised because, look, Fields is a weapon. He's not just his speed, it's his arm, right? And so, you can put him imagine, that the play they ran against New Orleans that Javon Wims dropped. I mean, you could have several things like that for Fields, on weird formations. And I mean, you could do a whole bunch of things with someone like Fields in those special packages. And keep in mind, look, he was awesome in the red zone and near the goal line in joint practices with Miami. He was converting touchdowns in the preseason whenever they were in the red zone. So he's been proven to be quite a weapon there. So I wouldn't be surprised if they broke out those packages in the red zone.
I rest my case. Yeah, no, I think so too. I love that question. I honestly think that I think he's earned that too. Especially we know how this is going down, right? We know that there's going to be some quarters this year. Probably more so often than not, unfortunately, that this offense is going to be like, oh my God, 3 and out. Nothing's happening. They're going to need to spice it up, and I think that's where you'd see Fields maybe go in there for a spark, make some stuff happen, extend some drives. So, great question, Chris. That's the best question of the night. Appreciate that one. Do you guys believe Ryan Pace is incompetent enough to have promised Andy Dalton the starting job when the Bears signed him? Yeah, they did. I don't think that's incompetence. They promised him the job. They said, hey, it's yours. They gave him $10 million. That's starter money in the NFL.
Look, I mean,
but they didn't know they were going to get Fields at that time. So
right.
Obviously they were going to promise him the starting job because he was their best option they had at the time. But also, I keep trying to point this out. The decision on who starts and who doesn't is not Ryan Pace's. His job is to get the players. The decision on who starts, that's Matt Nagy. So I always try to make sure to clarify that. This is Matt Nagy's decision to continue with Andy Dalton. I don't know if Ryan Pace actually agrees with him or not. We talked about how different he sounded in his press conference. He may want Justin to play right now. We don't know that. But the bottom line is Pace is backing the decision of his head coach, as he should. So they're not divided on this. They're forging ahead with this plan. It's a plan that's worked before. A lot of people don't like that plan because they want to see Justin play. They feel he's ready to play. He's a more talented quarterback. I get all that, but this is the way it's going. Who knows? It may work out. It worked out for Kansas City. Obviously, the Bears probably aren't as talented a team as Kansas City was, but the bottom line is it's not a terrible plan, but Andy Dalton needs to play well in order for that plan to work, and we don't know if he's going to or not yet.
Yeah, Kansas City's got, 3 or 4 Hall of Famers on that offense right now. Bears have none on theirs. So, you're right, different situations, but you're right. This is how it's going. Maybe we'll end up in a situation like this. Who knows? I did a really nice Photoshop job here, and I'm pretty proud of myself. This is a good one. If you guys remember The Last Dance, when they introduced Obama as the former Chicago resident instead of giving him the title of former president of the United States, which they then corrected in the next episode. I made this after I saw Ryan Pace, and if he screwed up the draft, he will become a former Chicago resident. And in some cases, many probably believe that he should have been a former resident, after last season. But whatever. I mean, that's in the past. Fields is QB2. Andy Dalton is QB1. Rams-Bears is just over a week away. The 53-man roster is set. You can read all of Eric's articles online depicting a lot of those guys. He had a whole cut tracker on there. You can continue to be upset about Rodney Adams not making the team. Just know that no one cares, and that you're in the fan base of a lot of other NFL fans who seem to be like, oh, we just cut we're so upset we just cut our 5th and 6th round wide receiver. You know what? It's okay. You will live. The Bears signed Prashad Paraman. This is a wide receiver group full of speed. It's a cornerback room full of questions. But guess what? We're rolling. We're ready for another season.
Sure are.
We are ready for another season. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to the Club Dub podcast. Again, we are presented by sportsmockery.com. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, you're right.
There you go.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Well, the thing was, the reason I screwed this up is because Drew didn't give me the topic right away. So, without further ado, we will introduce our own Drew call with tonight's final take.
There you go. I also feel like I did talk a lot, but I'll be quick here.
Yeah, you did.
I always do. Look, there's a lot of angst about Matt Nagy and his quarterback plan. Andy Dalton's QB1, Justin Fields is on the bench. No one seems to agree, and that's fine. What I take issue with is saying this plan has no merit. Everyone's looking at Trevor Lawrence is starting, Zach Wilson is starting, Mac Jones is starting. So what? The Bears have a legitimate veteran to start. Neither of those other teams do. So the Bears feel that they can get, actual time for Fields on the bench to learn a few things, whatever he has remaining to learn, with an actual veteran to learn from starting the games. Look, Fields may be ready to play right now. I think he is definitely further along than I thought he would be at this point. I think the Bears coaches feel that way too. Listening to Matt Nagy, listening to Ryan Pace, they cannot wait for Fields to take the field. They can't wait, but they can't be wrong. He needs to be ready, absolutely ready, and the Bears need to be absolutely sure that Fields is ready to go, because once they put him in, it's his team. And that's it. There's no going back. There's no Miami situation. Tua's in, then Fitzpatrick's in, then Tua's in. No, it's Fields' show. So until they are sure, they're going to go with Dalton. I get the angst. I get he's not exciting. I get Fields is exciting. I get, disagreeing with it. I get not being happy with it. But saying the plan doesn't have merit is insane. Please stop that. It has merit. It may not work, or it could work. If it does work, Matt Nagy's going to have a job in Chicago for the next decade. If it doesn't work, Matt Nagy's going to be gone next year or the year after at most. Relax. You're going to get your time with Justin Fields. The plan is a fine one. It's been proven to work. It'll be fine. Relax.
Here, here.
Love it. I love it.
Great stuff, Drew.
Are you going to Photoshop my face on that next time?
Hey, you just gave me a great idea for the next episode. I might have to. If you make some asinine comment on Twitter about Andy Dalton having a great game or something, maybe might have to do that. No, you're right. Great final take. This is the process. We got to live with it. I do think that no matter what, this buys as soon as he starts, the timer on their contracts, their new contracts begins. We don't know what their new contracts are, but the lifeline and however long they're at the helm of this ship begins as soon as number one takes the field as the starting quarterback. So, all right. Any final thoughts before we close out?
I think we covered everything.
All right, cool. Great show, guys. Love the comments this week. You guys were awesome. Again, thank you so much for tuning in. Give us a follow. You see our Twitter handles right in the bottom left-hand corners right there. Go ahead and follow our show and, of course, follow Sports Mockery on Twitter and Facebook. And again, the winner of the competition who guessed that Ryan Pace said the word excitement 18 times. I don't think we received a message from him. So if you are still watching, that was David Walter. You can be on the show next week. So go ahead and shoot us a message. But anyway, getting closer to Bears football, guys. This is going to be, I don't know. Football's the best time of the year. I woke up this morning, 60-degree weather. We're getting close. Can't wait. Cannot wait to hear Carrie Underwood and Al Michaels and Chris Collinsworth in just over a week. So we'll be back at it next Thursday to get everything going. We'll set the table for Bears Rams. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. See ya.